So I've been on YouTube quite a bit lately, and for some reason, I've seen a lot of like Jordan Peterson clips pop up on my feed. And I know what you're thinking, like Jordan Peterson, he's this like pseudo intellectual guy who's like obsessed with Carl Jung and symbolism and like, what do you mean by mean? Well, what do you mean by what? Well, what do you mean by believe? And like stuff like that. And I get it. I get the memes circulating around him. It's so funny because my opinion is a lot of the people who critique Peterson, they don't even critique what he's saying, but just how he's saying it. Like, sure, he speaks a bit differently. He's a bit more abstract, but like, if you actually like track the content of what he's saying, you'll realize that a lot of the times he's actually spitting fact. And I'm not a fan of him or anything. Like, my take on Peterson is sort of like conservative. Like, I don't really hate him, but I don't really like him either. I just like address the content. Like, that's what I try to do, regardless of like who I'm talking to. Like, I always just try to address the content of what I'm saying. But anyways, I was recently watching this video, right, where he's talking about what to do if you're depressed. And as someone who struggled with depression for a long time, this is something that really naturally piques my interest because, I'm always curious to understand the nature of depression, why people are the way they are, how do you actually escape and help people? Because if any of you know what depression is like, man, it sucks, especially when you have no one to go to, especially when you just are a man too, and you can't really like express your emotions adequately, lest you be seen as like weak or emotional or feminine. For some reason, there's that like unconscious or like implicit stigma in society that men can't go to therapy. They just have to like suck it up and go to the gym and do all these sorts of things. And like, it's absurd. But depression is just a hard thing. I want to talk about what Peterson actually says in this clip I watched because it's quite interesting. So the first thing he mentions is that we have to understand why we're depressed. Like, for example, you could be depressed because you are clinically depressed, like something's wrong with your brain, neurochemically speaking. Maybe you have like an illness, maybe you have like gout induced depression or Alzheimer's or Lewy body dementia, like Robin Williams had. There's all conditions that can make you depressed, even though your circumstances point towards like the best life you could possibly. But then there's another side of it. And he claims that this other side is where majority of depressed people fall. And the other side is this, that majority of people who are depressed is not because there's something wrong with them, but because their life just sucks. Like, for example, if you were to ask this type of person, do you have friends? They might say no. Do you have a job? They might say no, not yet, but I've been looking. This job economy just sucks. You know, do you have any goals? Do you know what you want to do with your life? And they might say, no, not really, but I'm trying out stuff. And like, I'm trying. But think about it. So they have no friends, have no job, they don't know what to do with their life. That is literally like a catalyst for depression. There's no way you could have all three things, meet all three criteria, and not experience some level of depression. And Peterson's claim is basically the fact that a lot of people fall under this category. And he also gives us a solution. So, what is the solution that he gives us? He basically says, clean your room, take responsibility. And I know what you're thinking. That sounds so cliche, you know, because obviously, if anyone has struggled with depression, you would know that simply cleaning your room won't do anything, if anything at all. Like it pretty much like you'll feel the same. Like it doesn't really do much. But if you actually look into what he's saying, he's actually right. But before we can understand why he's right, we first have to understand what happens in a depressed mind. So neuroscience has a lot of research showing that depression is highly correlated with the hyperactivity of the default mode network. And for those of you who don't know who aren't nerds like me, the default mode network is pretty much the part of your brain responsible for like self-referential, morbid thinking, spiraling in thoughts, living internally in your head instead of external. That's what happens when your default mode network is hyperactive. So, of course, depressed people are going to be more in their heads than average people, than people who aren't depressed. And it makes sense, right? You just think about it intuitively and it makes sense. Like when you're depressed, the reason you're depressed is because all these thoughts, they pop up into your mind, all these intrusive and morbid thoughts, and then you entertain them and you subtly like feed them by like focusing on them and like trying to like reply back to them, and you just stay in your head. Like that's the whole point of depression, right? And there's high correlations between staying in your head and being depressed. So going back to like the principle he outlined and why the principle of cleaning your room is right is because when you do stuff like cleaning your room, it doesn't have to be cleaning your room, but when you do stuff like cleaning your room, when you attend outwardly, when you attempt to take any sense of responsibility, you are forced to step outside of your head, even if it's just for a moment. And in that moment, you could get quite a bit of things done, even if that moment is like 5 minutes, right? Imagine like you're trying to like water the grass. I don't know, right? And it takes 5 minutes. In that moment, you're less likely to like struggle with all these thoughts of depression because you're doing something. And this is especially true if you like the thing has responsibility, like a lot of weight to it. Like, for example, if your dad is asking you to like, I don't know, build this thing or else the house will like fall apart. Obviously, you have to like work at it and do it because not doing it will have a lot of consequences. And I think that the more consequences the task has, if you don't complete it, the harder it is for you to just be depressed because you're forced to like really attend out. And I think that's the principle he's trying to go for. It's the principle of simply just attending outwardly. And, I've tried this throughout my life because I'm someone who, again, struggles with depression quite a bit throughout my life. And, I usually just roll my eyes at such proclamations of like, oh, clean your room. Oh, just do this. Oh, these, my mind would be like, oh, these guys don't have not a clue in the world what they're talking about. They have no idea how hard it is. But you know what? I tried it because I had no other options left. Or maybe they're seeing something that I'm not because I have no options left. I simply just try it. And lo and behold, it ends up working. Obviously, not a fix, like there's no magical cure, but it helps at least. And you know what? I'll take it. So that's why I think Jordan Peterson is actually right about some things. And I feel like people should give him a bit more credit and like actually try to track what he's saying and critique the content of what he's saying instead of just how, because, like everyone has their own temperaments, the way of speaking and personality types, and they could speak in like a very prevaricating manner for whatever reason they want. They could like run around with like words and be verbose and use all this like sophisticated language to seem like an intellectual. Yeah, they have their reasons for doing that. But like, I feel like we just need to attend to like the content of what people say, even if they do that. And then from there, then we can form a judgment and a critique. So that's my view on Peterson and what I have to say about him. And you know what? He's right about depression. So